This is the G01 Mini Speedlight from Photoolex. This is an affordable, compact, on-camera flash that can help take your portraits and add that extra pop of light that helps them stand out. But at just only $35, is this thing actually any good? And that's exactly what I want to cover in this review and go over some of the differences and pros and cons of a simple flash like this versus a more professional flash like my Godox V1 Pro. Hey there, my name is Bruno Pozo. I'm a commercial filmmaker here in Bend, Oregon, and I make weekly videos on filmmaking technique, gear review, and how to make money with your camera. If that interests you, hit that like and subscribe. Now, onto the review. So what makes this flash different from a more professional flash like this Godox V1 Pro? Well, there's a few main differences, but number one, and that's most obvious, is that the Godox flash can actually have an adjustable angle to the direction of the flash. You can do it to the side, you can do it directly like the Photoolex G01 Mini Speedlight, but you can also bounce the light and do other cool things with this flash. Because this has no adjustable angle, you're pretty much stuck doing only direct flash, which is usually okay. It's a very traditional type of flash in that sense, but you really can't get creative with the angles or the use cases that you can capture with this flash. This is also a fully manual flash, meaning you're gonna have to adjust the intensity of the flash depending on your shot, and you can't use any sort of automatic function like you can on a normal traditional flash. On the Godox, I pretty much set this to ETTL, which is sort of like the auto mode on a flash, where the flash is communicating with the camera to judge what the flash intensity should be at to get a proper exposure. Because this flash doesn't have that, it means you're gonna have to do more photos and trial and error to really get the right exposure that you want for the photo that you're taking. There also is definitely a power difference between these flashes. This one comes with a guide number of 16, so you can use that math to calculate what intensity you should have this at to get the proper exposure. But I'm not super familiar with guide numbers, and I didn't really do that in my shoots. In all the photos that I'm gonna share in this video, they were just done through a little trial and error. I would adjust the flash intensity based on sort of like an estimate of what I think it would be at. I like to really overjudge by usually putting this at 100%, especially if it's a daylight situation, and then I would adjust from there. But that does mean I had some extra photos that I normally wouldn't get, like when I would shoot with the Godox, I just use it in auto, and 90% of the time, it's pretty darn good and accurate at getting the proper exposure of my subject. There are a bunch of other sort of smaller differences that I won't really go into because they're not really important to this review, but this does come with a bunch of advanced features like focusing the light. You got a model light in the front here. You can use this to communicate to other flashes. You can do off-camera flash as well. But the last big difference I want to cover between these flashes is that this one's a lot smaller, right? So I do love my Godox flash. This one's very professional and it's worked wonders at events for me, but it is so much bigger. And so I don't always want to carry this, say if I'm like hiking or doing something a little more casual than my commercial work. For that more casual setting, I have found having a smaller, more compact flash like this that fits very nicely on a camera, but isn't going to add all that bulk and weight and size, then I will normally pick this up a little more often, and it gets 80% of the job done. Is it gonna do everything that I want like the Godox flash? Absolutely not. But in that more casual setting, I don't really need that. And so I have really appreciated this for its size and power. All right, let's move on how to actually use the Photoolex flash. The flash normally comes like this without any cover, but it comes with some accessories. So this is like a little sort of diffuser, which I leave on pretty much all the time because I prefer sort of that softer flash look. It's not like significantly softer, but it does reduce some of that harshness that the direct flash could have without the sleeve on. You also get a few color modifiers. So there's like this magnetic clamp you put on here that allows you to stick these sort of magnetic filters on. So you can get like an orange cast here, you get a blue cast, you have a bunch of different colors. For more creative looks, I didn't really use them too often. I'm really more of a simple flash person, and The colors I find a little hard to implement, at least personally. Anyway, there's only really two buttons on here. There's the test flash button, which also functions as the on and off. You just hold it and then the LED screen will turn on, and then you'll just turn the knob to actually turn on the flash. Once you're in that menu, the knob just allows you to adjust the intensity of the flash. And then if you press the back of the knob, you'll actually switch modes. This can apparently do some off-camera flash triggering in S1 and S2 mode. I didn't really get to test that because I think you need another Photoolex flash. Apparently it can be triggered via another flash, being that like if it's, I think they call it optical flash, where if it detects light on its sensor here in the front, it will actually trigger the flash and it will also send its own flash. And so you can do some cool off-camera flash tricks like this. But once again, that's a little tough because one, this thing doesn't have any way to mount to like a light stand or anything. It only has like the hot shoe mount, so I'm not sure how you would do an off-camera flash with this. And number two, since there's no adjustable angle on this, you really have to be precise in how you're gonna use this as an off-camera flash. But once again, I couldn't get that to work, but those modes are available. And then lastly, you have a USB-C port for recharging, which is what I really appreciate about most modern devices these days. Everything is pretty much rechargeable via USB-C, so you can charge this thing. It has an internal battery. I don't have to go swapping for batteries or using some sort of proprietary battery to use this flash. I just simply recharge it, and this thing lasts pretty long. I believe at 100% power, it's 700 flashes or photos you can take. And so that's when you're using maximum power. And most of the time, you're not really gonna be doing that unless you're in daylight, I suppose. But even then, 700 photos is a lot of photos to have. And mounting this to your camera is super easy. It has like a universal hot shoe. So you just wanna make sure it's compatible with your model. I think with most modern cameras, it doesn't matter what brand, this flash will work. You slide it into the hot shoe, and then there's a little dial on the back here. You slide that over, and it locks into place. And just like that, you're pretty much ready to shoot. The camera will synchronize with the flash whenever you push the trigger or the shutter, and to take a photo, the flash will engage. I personally have found that this flash can work up to 1/200th of a second. If you go to 1/250th or above, the flash doesn't actually cover the full range of the photo. So just keep that in mind, that the maximum flash or shutter speed you can have with this flash is 1/200. But because the camera isn't doing any ETTL with the flash, it's not gonna lock you from going above 1/200th. And so you just have to know that in the back of your mind, okay, the fastest I can go 1/200, and then I usually just leave it there and I adjust the flash intensity from there. So on a few shoots, I was able to actually test this flash specifically for portraits. I did one in the evening, more sort of a sunset vibe. So there's actually a lot less ambient light. And so I didn't have to crank this to its max power. And then on another shoot, I did it in pure daylight. And so I pretty much had this at max power the whole time. And depending on my distance, I would have to either adjust the f-stop or even the intensity, but most of the time I was at like 80 to 100% unless I was really close to the subject. And as you can see, this provides a very traditional sort of flash look. I'm not the best when it comes to direct flash. I'm really someone who prefers bouncing flash or even off-camera flash if possible, because I think that's when you can create the most dimension and depth in your images. But with a direct flash, you can get really creative if you know what you're doing. So one of the first things I looked for was using the sun or some sort of light source as a backlight. That way the flash can act as a fill or a key light, lighting up my subject, but I still get a little separation from the background because of that edge light. This is very easy to do, especially in daytime, but I did struggle doing this in the evening shoot that I did in the sunset. Because we were more in a valley area, there was a lot of trees actually blocking the sun from actually hitting us, and it was ever so slightly cloudy. So it was a more soft light day. But in that case, instead of using this to be more of a key light, I made it more as a fill light. So I would try to expose for the ambient light in the room or in the area. And then I would just adjust the intensity so that I could just add a little pop and fill in my subject so that they're not completely obscured in darkness. Using the flash in this fill light manner kept the photo a lot more natural to my eyes. Versus when you go for like that really harsh direct flash look, it can look very artificial, which is perfectly fine. It just all depends on the vibe and look you're going for. As a beginner flash, I think this one does a pretty decent job. I reviewed another mini compact flash not too long ago from Zenico. And the issue with that one that I found was that because it was so small, it was actually much smaller than this one, it barely rose above the hot shoe height. And so if you had a very long lens, like a zoom lens of any kind, even, it doesn't even have to be super long, but any fairly long lens, the shadow would actually show up in the photo. And so what I really appreciate about the Photoolex flash here is that it is a little bit bigger, but it's actually higher up off of the hot shoe. So you're not getting any weird shadows from your lens in the photo. And if you decide to use this in a more portrait style, holding the camera vertically, it doesn't get a weird pattern on your subject. It changes the direction of the light ever so slightly, so you do want to compose differently. But I still think the photos came out really nicely, even in that orientation. So what is my final verdict? I think the Photoolex Mini Flash is a pretty good beginner flash. It's not gonna be great for any sort of professionals or people who want to do more advanced styles of flash photography. You're stuck to one style, direct flash. And for portraits, I found it to be just strong enough to give that extra pop and fill to my subjects, even in daylight. And all that you're getting for just $35-ish, I think is a relatively good deal. Especially if you don't even know if you're gonna get into flash photography, right? Like for example, the Godox V1 Pro, I think this one was like $250, $300-ish. So this is really meant for someone who is going to be doing serious flash work and is a professional. Whereas the Photoolex, I think could be a great casual / enthusiast flash just to get you started in the journey. But what do you think? I would love to hear your thoughts on one, flash photography and flash accessories like the G01 Mini Speedlight. If you want to pick up the Photoolex Speedlight for yourself, there will be a link in the description box below. If you like gear reviews just like this one, you can check out my gear review playlist here. Thank you so much for watching all the way until the end. I appreciate every single one of you who do, and I'll see you in the next video.